We're going to take a look at an interesting implementation today, which uses Dalle and text to speech to create a website dynamically, including story, images, and audio files. All you have to do is just enter a prompt, and story, images, and audio is generated. In this case, I entered a baby turtle and a red rose, I believe. And then this was the first image, and here's the story.
In a vibrant reef, a baby turtle named Timmy discovered a radiant red rose flourishing anomalously on a coral shelf. Baffled by its presence in the deep blue, Timmy felt an inexplicable pull towards its velvet petals glistening amongst the aquatic.
So we're gonna review the code, but you enter a prompt and the story is generated, then the image, then the audio, and they are all dynamically added to this HTML file. Then it's a website, right? And this is how it looks like. It can be more beautiful, I'm sure, but that's it. This is
Timmy's
the end
heart
of the
raced,
story.
the ocean's rhythm syncopating with his pulse.
So let me run this so you can see how it works. When you first run it, you get to enter a prompt. So describe your dream world. We can say maybe again like baby turtle, and the aliens can be whatever you like. And then we make a call to GPT and we get streaming responses for a part of a story. This is going to be the beginning of the story. And then we parallel call using thread pool executor, both to generate the image and then the audio as well. And once it's ready, it gets added to this HTML file, as you see. And this is what is generated. Now we can actually
Beneath the
listen
silver
to it.
gleam of a crescent moon, a baby turtle named Tilly scuttled
And then
across
now
the
the
cool sand,
next part is
her heart
generated.
set on the vast, shimmering ocean ahead.
Once the next part of the story is generated, we'll see this HTML file update along with the website.
As she neared the water, a soft hum filled the...
Here we go, see? When that was generated, the HTML got updated with the second part of the story.
Intrigued by Tilly's determination, the aliens watched as she paddled through the surf. They decided to aid her journey.
Now we are generating the third part. That's the final part because I set the loop to three segments. It can be any number. Yep, that's the final part, and this is the final.
As Tilly became one with the sea, the shadowy figures emerged as guardians of an underwater realm, curious about the illuminated...
So this is how it works. It's pretty cool. So this is part of a larger project I'm working on, right? Everything GPT API course. I just added this to it. These are the files that we just generated. We can delete those. So this is available at Patreon. Link is in the description. This talks about everything, Assistance API, GPT-4 vision speech examples, the new OpenAI library, function calling, image generation. Each of the files have a video explanation as well. Also, I talk about the older API, which talks a lot about the parameters, which are still very much so relevant. Anyway, but let's go back to this one. So I got this idea. I've been experimenting with multimodality. I also did the language tutor the other day. I don't know if you've seen that video. And I've been experimenting with it, really. So let's see what this is about. So maybe this is like a cliche, right? Generating stories, but I wanted to add a little bit of flavor to it where I thought, what can we dynamically generate an HTML page with all this stuff, right? So that's what we're doing here. And we are generating the images and the audio concurrently in parallel. So we don't have to wait for them one after the other. So we just have our regular imports. Because we are generating with DALL-E 3 and it returns a URL, we're going to use requests. And in the new version of the OpenAI API, which is the version 1 and above, we don't just import OpenAI. You can still do that, but we import OpenAI from OpenAI and we instantiate a client like this. You can set your API key either to get it from your environment variables which you have set in your system, right? In your system environment variables by clicking on environment variables here. I'm not going to go in there, but you can do that and retrieve it with getenv using OS, or you can just simply input your API key right here, which is not obviously recommended because other people can see it. If they have access to the code, you want to keep it a secret. Other than that, we have this simple HTML page. If I were to actually create an index.html and just copy paste this here, we'll take a look at what this is. This is kind of like our template. And I do have this, you see this button right here? It says show preview. There's a cool extension called live preview. So if you install this one right here, then when you're on an HTML file, you'll get this little button, show preview. And when you click, it actually shows it right in the VS Code. So it's helpful. I also have the live server, but that'll launch it in a browser, right? So anyway, so this is a simple template which we're going to use, very basic. You feel free to modify it any way you like. We are using some Tailwind classes, so we don't have to deal with CSS. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about Tailwind as well. So this is it, right? This is a template, and the rest of the functions and all that is to generate the storyline, images, and audio in sync, and then update this HTML file. Let's take a look at it again to see how it works, because I really like how cool it looks. Let's come up with a new idea. Let's say hopeful future with robots. Let's see what it does. This has some quirks. It doesn't work perfectly, but with a little bit of prompt engineering. See, for example, it adds this sentence here. I'll talk about why that's happening. It's due to the system message and the user message, but so it just generates a story, and then if we were to go to this, see, our HTML is the template, and as soon as we generate the new stuff, it gets added, and then they get added to our website. The story, image, and the audio.
In the year 2150, amidst skyscrapers
and
in the year 20, humanity entrusted its.
So that's how it works. Let's go over it one by one. So we first initialize our HTML template, which we're going to use. I'm gonna break out of this so we don't generate some stuff that we don't need. So these functions are a bit out of order, but so here's text to speech, right? Because we initialized our client with OpenAI, we're going to use this function to call to the new text-to-speech API that OpenAI released. And we're going to get some audio. And you can just give it any text input. Oh, I was just looking at the chat. Yeah, sure, Matt. Yeah. Yeah, my code is available at Patreon. Feel free to take a look. But I like to talk about it in my videos anyway. So text-to-speech takes in a model. This is the only one that's available as far as I know. There's 6 different voices. We're using Onyx, and you input a text, some kind of text. Here we are using segment text, which is generated by GPT. And then thankfully, OpenAI has provided a method with the response object called stream to file. You give it a file name, which we are defining right here. It automatically saves it, just like this.
In the year 2150.
Like that. And so that's our text-to-speech function. And then let me go down here. And this is our generate image from narrative function, which takes in a narrative, which is the part of our story. And we call Dalle-E 3, again with client.images generate. We give it a prompt. So the prompt is create a beautiful image prompt from the storyline, and we give this part of the story. So Dalle-E 3 works a bit differently than other text-to-image models you may have worked with. You know, normally when you're working with Midjourney or Stable Diffusion or something, you just give it a prompt and you know the image that that prompt corresponds to, more or less. You can modify the prompt. But with Dalle-E, a new prompt is generated. Actually, with the return object, whichever this image response is, actually has a revised revise prompt key in it so you can actually see. So whatever prompt you pass here is going to get modified. Okay, and it's going to be somewhat in line with what you're saying. That's why I said here, create a beautiful image prompt rather than saying an image. And if I go here, by the way, check out my new website, codehive.app. It has over 900 GPT apps. We'll talk about that. So, but if I go to real quickly, where is it? Documentation. If I go to image generation, see here it says, so it's not currently possible to disable the feature that revises the prompt. Okay. But they actually put here, so it says, let's read it. With the release of DALL-E 3, the model now takes in the default prompt provided and automatically rewrite it for safety reasons and to add more detail. Okay, I guess I can see that. So while it's not currently possible to disable this feature, you can use prompting to get outputs closer to your requested image. So it says just put this in your prompt if you want it to be as close to your actual prompt as possible, right? This OpenAI documentation is really great. I like to read through it here and there. Oh, Matt is asking, CodeHive is just an app that I built, which has AI-generated GPT apps. Okay, so you can just go to www.codehive.app and browse through it. And if you see something you like, here's the code. You can copy or download it. There's 10 app clicks limit. Not all code is perfect. Just so you know, it's AI generated, and I couldn't really, test all of it. But this should give you some ideas, maybe some business ideas, experimental playground. It is a really nice search. For example, you can search for math or Python. Well, if you gotta spell it right, you get to see some stuff, like music. So, like I said, these are AI generated. Make sure sometimes it has some silly errors, but most of them work. And so if they have errors, they have small errors or small logic issues, which you can work with. Anyway, enough of that. Coming back to this, so that's why I said create a beautiful image prompt. Anyway, and now we're giving the part of our story. So this is going to generate our image, and this is going to generate our text. And because if you look at the image function, this returns a URL. You can actually set it so it returns a base 64 image, so you can use some Python libraries to directly save it. But by default, it returns URL. I'll just show that quickly too. We have to go to API reference, go to images. See, image object takes in, see, it can be a create image right here. Response format can be URL or B64 JSON. So it defaults to URL, but you can change it to B64. So you would put in a parameter called response format, and you can say B64, that it'll return base 64, then you can convert it and save it. But in this case, it returns a URL. Okay, so we get that URL, and this function uses requests to get that URL and then save it to an appropriate image file, which we are naming according to the segment. That's why it takes in a segment number, like this and like this. Another cool thing maybe to know about the image Dalle API is that it is a parameter called this quality. I believe it can be standard or HD, and HD creates much more detailed images, as you can see here. There's another cool parameter, and this gives me a chance to talk about OpenAI Cookbook real quick. If you go to this place, I'll put this in the chat. They have some, see, Real Depew have this, what's new with DALL-E 3. This is a really good read. It talks about all the parameters. It also has a style parameter, natural or vivid, and it has some comparisons between them here. See, like this is standard, this is HD. HD doesn't correspond to resolution, but it corresponds to more detail. See, this is standard, this is HD. Yeah, it also is vivid versus, yeah, this is natural. Anyway, so you can take a look at that. Here we are using HD, that's why they're like more detailed. Going back to here, so that's it, right? And our download image function just simply gets that URL, downloads it using request, and saves it to a file. And then we have append to HTML function, which, by the way, if anybody's new here, we are looking at this project, which actually uses GPT to build a whole website based on a story, complete with audio, image, and the story itself. So because remember we have specified our HTML template, then this append to HTML is going to get the story, the image, and then the audio, and is going to append it. So what we're doing here is we are defining a function which takes in an HTML file. We haven't defined the HTML file yet. We're going to do it right here. See, HTML file, and we're going to initialize it. But when it is done, this function, when we call it, is going to take that file and it's going to open it with the intention of appending to it. And we're going to append, we're going to create a div with some Tailwind classes. We'll talk about that. But pay attention that this is an open element. If you know about HTML, we have opened this element, but we haven't closed it. See, we close it right at the bottom. So it's like a sequence of stuff that we're writing into this HTML file. Yeah, where to set the, yeah, we'll talk about that actually, how we can change the language of the audio. But let me talk about this append to HTML real quick. So this is like the first line, second line. You can think of it like that. Tailwind classes are great. So we're saying the background is going to be white. The corners of this div is going to be rounded. LG stands for large. It's going to have a shadow. Large. If you look at the image, that's why we have this shadow. See, at the bottom, and the corners are rounded, as you can see. So you can specify those things. Maybe I'll just leave it right here, so it looks more beautiful. And then this P is padding, and margin. MB means margin bottom. So anyway, so we're just specifying this div. And then next we're inputting a header with H2, which says segment and the segment number just like this. And then next we add the paragraph with some properties. We input the segment text, which is this. After that, we check to see if we have an image file name, which we should hopefully. Then we insert it in an image element with the source pointing to that file name. We give an alternative text to it. I believe it should show up somehow. Anyway, yeah, that's it. This is image, and then we check for audio, and we input the audio similar to image with the audio tag. That's why this shows up.
Shadow, a brilliant young program,
which uses the MP3, and then we close the div. So this appends it. So remember, when this file is first initialized, I believe it starts with this, and then it adds this div. And then it adds the next div. That's what the append does. So where to set the MP3 voice? Let's take a look. Actually, I believe, let's go back to API reference. Audio, voice, speed, language. See, it is a language parameter. So see, there's where you define a model, file, whatever, and now you can define language. I'm not sure what languages are available. Let's go back to documentation, text to speech. These are all the voices that are available.
The sun rises in the east. In the heart of the city, the library is a quiet and peaceful.
I like Fable.
The train chugged along the tracks.
In the kitchen, the aroma of
the beach was a popular.
And I guess there's also a secret voice, which I don't know the name about. Somewhere. Okay, it doesn't okay, here, supported languages. These are supported. Whisper also support languages, but it turns out if you actually input your prompt the right way, it actually starts speaking these languages without actually inputting the language, as I did with the multimodal language tutor. This is really cool. Like, see, I can say, so it's actually running. I can, so this is another project I did. I can ask, let's say, how can I say hello viewers in Chinese? And maybe you can tell me if it sounds all right. So it's first writing. After that, see, it's generating the audio, and then it's going to play it after it's done.
In Mandarin Chinese, you can say hello viewers as 你好, 观众们. And in Cantonese, you would say 你好, 观众. Remember that tones are important in Chinese pronunciation, and the above transliterations are in Mandarin Pinyin and Jutping for Cantonese.
Right, but why did I do this, right? Just to say that I don't know how good of a Chinese this one was, but the fact that you don't have to really specify a language when you prompt it, I think it just does it, right? But if you specify the language, it should do it much better. Anyway, so that was append to HTML function. Then we have our initialize HTML function, which just takes in an HTML file name and it starts it, right? That's where we end up with an HTML file just ready to go. Oh, and then we write the HTML template. So the initiated HTML file will just have this ready to append stuff to it. And then we have the generate segment, which does the heavy lifting. So this one gets the story from GPT-4, also gets the image and the audio by calling these functions. And we bring all of that in the Dream Vista app, which is our main loop, so to speak. So if we actually look at this real quick, we get a description from the user, right? Let's actually run this with debugging on so we can see what's happening one by one. Let me actually put breakpoints here so we can see each one of these happening. Okay, so we are at this part. It's asking for a description. Let's say a love story. Then we go to HTML file, Dream Vista narrative. We define the file name. We initialize the HTML. We are going to open it and write the HTML template to it. See, we have done that. Now it's just like this. Next up is to we assign dream description, which is a love story, to previous segment narrative, because in the first time, right, we're gonna get what the user has input, but in the second time around, the previous segment is the first part of the story, so it's just gonna go on like that. Because we want to break the story into segments, and then we define the number of segments here to 3. We define the end of story Boolean, just to let GPT know that, okay, at the end of the story, this is the answer. It knows, hopefully it's trying to bring the story together and end it. Then we enter this loop. In this loop, we check if we are at the end of the story. If it is, we set the end of the story to true. Otherwise, we call the generate segment, which is going to do pretty much all the rest of the stuff with the previous segment narrative, which is pretty much what we just inputted at this time, a love story segment number, which is going to be 1 at this time. And then next time 2 and 3, right? We give it the HTML file, end of story, which is a Boolean, which is currently false, and number of segments. And then this takes us into the generate segment. Here we can talk about this, right? So we have a system message which says, you're a dramatic and creative story builder. Please use less than 60 words for each segment of the story. The reason why I chose 60 words is because I first wanted each segment to be short. And I was kind of thinking maybe I'll try to time how much it takes for the next part of the story being generated to how long these would take. Anyway, I think that's a bit of a mistake on my part. But anyway, it's just 60 words. If segment number is 1, you're starting the story based on user message. If segment number is larger than 1, then you're continuing the story based on the previous segment. Do not mention the word segment in your response. So we're going to give in the user message, we're going to say, see, you're on the, we're going to say, we are currently in segment 1 out of 3, in the hopes to let GPT know where we are in the story, so it can hopefully try to, put it together better. That's why we are saying if the segment number is 1, you're at the start of the story, because we are going to input the segment prompt here, which is what we've just inputted, right? A love story. And then otherwise you're continuing the story, because the segment prompt the next time around is going to be what the GPT generates right now. Anyway, then you say this will this will signify if we're at the end of the story or not. And this next thing, right? Are we at the end of the story? And then we say false. This is probably not a good way to do it, because it sometimes repeat this in the story itself. But I couldn't think of a better way, but I'm sure, it just takes time to, do prompt engineering. And if you are nearing the end of the story, start wrapping things up, and at the end segment, finish the story. This is the system message, and the user message says we are currently in segment 1 out of 3, part of the story. Please create the beginning of the story if you are in segment 1. Otherwise, continue the story based on the following content given. This will be previous segment if segment number is greater than 1. Here is the content. So I ran into some issues, right? I wanted the story to continue. The story initializes with what you enter as a description, but because we are creating a segment in parts, GPT gets to generate those parts, and then I wanted it to understand, okay, at first we are building a story about a love story, but in the second round, when we call this API call, then continue the story from the first part of the story. That's the whole idea. We set streaming to true, mixed tokens, we limit it. And then, this is how we get the streaming responses. And I like to print it. When we do this, we can see it in the terminal. So this is the cool part. I like using thread pool executor, because we need to, so this is a sequential process where we generate the story, but then now now that we have the story part, we want to generate an image and a voiceover based on that. And because these are time-consuming processes, I wanted to do them in parallel. That's why I'm using thread pool executor. Since we are doing image and audio, max workers 2 is sufficient. How this works is you define the executor, and then you submit functions to it. So we're going to submit the image function and audio function, and then we're going to wait for their result. How this works is executor.submit takes in a function name. This is the function name, and these are the arguments. This is the argument that's going to go into this function. Same with text-to-speech, but text-to-speech takes 2 arguments, narrative segment and segment number. Once these are submitted, they will process in the background on 2 separate threads. Once they're done, this image.feature result will receive it. We'll get our image URL, and we'll get our audio file name. Remember, we've talked about these functions. And then we use the download image function to download the image. These can be named better. And then we call the append to HTML. So now we can append it. So let's see it. I'm going to jump to here real quick. So when we run this, we're going to generate the first part of the story. And when it's done, we're going to submit both of these. See, both of them are being submitted. Text-to-speech, and then image. And now we're waiting. So the thread pool executor is working in the background. See, we can see the threads here, 0 and 1. When they're done, we should get the image URL and the audio file name. Just gonna take a moment, and when we got it now. We are returning it, and now we're going to download it. Download the image, and then save it to a file. There we go. And then we're going to append to HTML. Watch what happens here. We're going to run through this one by one. Can maybe see it happening. Let me refresh. It's not going to reflect until we close this div. And right after that, say we've added the segment 1, the story, the image, and the audio.
In a bustling cityscape dusted with the first kiss of winter, Leo found himself entranced.
So that's pretty cool. Then we return the narrative segment, which is our story. And then we move on, right? Now we move on to the second part. So this is the interesting part. See, we now, well, I guess all of it is interesting. Number of segments. Yeah, see, now our previous segment narrative includes the previous part of the story. So when we come here, we're not inserting the user input, but the previous part. So then if I remove these checkpoints, breakpoints, I mean, and just run it, then we'll just see it in action in real time. Now the second part. Yeah, this is about it. This is how it works. While it's doing that, I'll again talk about CodeHive. Yeah, CodeHive is interesting. If you do use it, let me know. It probably can be better. I'm gonna work on it more, but it wasn't easy to. It was kind of expensive to generate 900 GPT apps. I should have actually maybe done a secondary call to make sure all of the apps were properly working, but maybe I'll do that. Anyway, it's codehive.app. Link is in the description. And also this particular one, the Story Maker, is available at Patreon as well. Link is in the description. So this is the second part and the third part. Yeah, this is kind of how it works. And like I said, this is part of a larger project called Everything GPT API course. So you, if you do become a patron, you'll get access to all of these. Yeah, this is it. So I haven't been doing live streams for a while now. I'm hoping to do more of these. Let's see how it goes, you know. But let me go through the chat, see if anybody has any questions. Yeah, I mean, Matt, you're right. You know, the story creation is a bit cliche, but I wanted to add some interesting stuff to it with this HTML generation. You know, take it for what it's worth. And also, before we close, we can talk about the multimodal language. I'm really actually proud of this one. This is a really good one. And like I said, you realize that you can say you don't. So when you start talking to it, so neither whisper nor text to speech is set to a particular. Let me find it. Language. See, whisper is not set to a language, and also the TTS is not set to a language. But whatever you speak here, actually it understands it. So if you speak in a language that is other than English, it will actually understand that and translate it into English, for example. Like, let me try to say something in my broken German. Let's see. Ich verstehe ein bisschen Deutsch in English. Let's see if it'll do it. Ah, you see, it did. Ich verstehe ein bisschen Deutsch. In English,
The sentence Ich verstehe ein bisschen Deutsch in English translates to I understand a little German.
yeah, say, hey Travis, how are you? Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. I'll try to do more. Let's try another one. Wo ist der Berlinstraße in English?
The German phrase Wo ist der Berliner Straße translates to Where is the Berlin Street in English.
So it's awesome. Like, I was very much so surprised because we didn't set any language, so it understands pretty much any language to any language. You can ask situational stuff to it too. I don't have a link for this, by the way, in the description. Maybe I'll put one after I end the stream. But it's available, and it's like the last video I did, multimodal language tutor. Sometimes, though, the only issue that happens sometimes is that it just misses the pronunciation. That's about it. But you can also ask it like situational stuff. So you don't only have to say, well, okay, what is this in this language or stuff like that. Like, for example, I can say something like, I want to celebrate my parents' New Year, but they are French. What should I write in the card? Oh. Okay, this is interesting. Let's try this again. So it has this interesting feature, which we'll talk about, because we can switch to text, but let's try this again. I want to write a card to celebrate my parents' New Year, but they are French and they don't speak English. What should I write? Oh, this is interesting. Huh. I want to celebrate my girlfriend's New Year on the phone. What should I tell her? She is French. I think because I want to. Okay, this is interesting. Let's try this. I will be calling my parents to celebrate their New Year, and they are French. What should I say? Oh, that's really interesting. See, it's making a mistake here. Because I have an intent check to switch to text, and it's user wants to switch. But we don't want to really. That's good to know. When I'm in a business meeting with my French partners, and I want to excuse myself, what should I say? So it understands like situational stuff. It should have. That's partly my bad. I implemented this complex checking mechanism, which now is not.
In a French business meeting, if you want to excuse yourself politely from the table or conversation, you could use the phrase Excusez-moi, je dois m'absenter un moment.
Yeah, I'll come back to this. So you're asking Threadpool Executor, you know, I did a video a long time ago. If we go back and check, let's see. So I was doing this stuff, right? 100 simultaneous GPT-4 API calls and 150, 20 documents summarized simultaneously. So I learned about a lot of parallel processing stuff doing these videos. And if you look at the description, one of them uses async IO. So I used pretty much, I I used threading, I used async IO, I used thread pool executor to do multiple stuff at the same time, making API calls or whatever it is. And I ended up really liking thread pool executor. It's very simple. So I kept using it. So with thread pool executor, what you're doing is you create an executor and then you submit stuff to it. Like you can submit it within a for loop. We are submitting it explicitly. Usually what you want to submit to the thread pool executor should be a function. So you should define your function, right? And then you submit your function to it. So you're saying, okay, I want you to do this. I want you to do that. And once you submit, it generates a thread. So they're like separate threads that are running simultaneously. And then you kind of gather them with the image feature.result. And then you just deal with that. Say image feature.result, audio feature, because we've specified this is the object which the executor will return, whatever the result. And there's also as completed. As completed. When you're doing a loop, you also use as completed. So different threads are going to end at different times. So as completed allows you to deal with them as they are completed. Here we're not using it, so this is really not that efficient because so this two things will run in parallel, but we will have to wait for image to be completed first, which is the case anyway. Audio takes longer, so it's no problem here. But normally speaking, when you submit multiple tasks to the executor, you normally want to wait for it to be like, you check for different events, threads to be completed with as completed. So how to learn more about it? Well, I would just maybe come up with a simple, quick project. Just it can be as simple as doing some math calculations, which might take some time, and just run them in parallel. And you can just talk to GPT about it. You can say, well, here's a function which takes 5 seconds to run or something like that, right? And then take that function. And then ask it to GPT, I want to run like 100 of them at the same time or something like that. As a matter of fact, maybe we can try that if you want. Yeah, let's try that. So what is this? Oh, so this is how CodeHive code looks like, essentially. So I was just looking at one. Let's say, let's ask GPT. Write a Python function, which will take a couple of seconds to finish. Let's do some math stuff. Let's ask the same thing to Copilot chat too. Oh, okay, so let's go. All right, so it's going to do something simple, but it's going to do it. Include the loop within the function because I am going to test this with thread pool executor. So it's just run a function. It's going to run it like 100 million times. Okay. Oh, it's actually doing it for us. Task. So let's take this and take a look. So you can just do stuff like that and see. Anyway, let's come back to this. So we have a function which it's going to take n, and here is this many numbers. Let's actually lessen it. Let's say 100,000. Did you know you can do this in Python? Just for better readability. This is the same thing. Just so you know, you can do that. So we have a function, and then we also have execute task, which says, so this runs the loop for 100,000 times, and this just calls that function, right? And then here with the thread pool executor, you're submitting this function 5 times. See, let's say submitting this is to the executor. So unless I'm grievously mistaken, this should work. See, what happened is that, oh, this was too quick. So we do want to do this 1 million times. And again, it's too quick. 10 million times. See what happens? See, we submitted all the tasks, but it's still ongoing. They're all going in parallel. And then at the end, we get the results. So essentially, see, they all took the same amount of time. If we were to do it in parallel, this whole thing would have taken 40 seconds. So yeah, just talk to GPT about it. Anyway, I think this is it. We're done. Thank you for watching. Let me see if yeah, Matt, I mean, coding is always learning, you know, just keep going. Little one step at a time makes it work. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll try to do more of these, maybe short ones, you know, frequently. Hope you enjoyed it. And don't forget to check out Code Hive. Let me know what you think. And also the Echo Hive, you can find all my projects. Thanks for watching. Take care, everybody.